Good evening. This is Maestro Cartella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Desert Showdown. Our first player is Manisz. I say Manisz, Indrid says Manisz, I say Manisz. He is playing as the Eldar Farseer, already really getting into the thick of things, using her special attack. She is an Eldar support hero. She does fight in melee as well, but she's more about using her support spells like Guide, which can buff damage of an allied unit. And she's got many more for buffing, debuffing, disabling, controlling, etc. His teammate is Rataxas, playing as the Orc Warboss, a tanky melee hero, walks around with his truck backpack, walks right through cover. He can be suppressed and knocked down, however. He's so big. He's even bigger than a Chaos Lord, and I mean, a Chaos Lord is intimidating enough as it is. He can stomp, good for disrupting melee units, and just tie things up. He's also got User Choppers and Ard Boys, some very, very powerful globals. On the other team, first of all, we've got Noob Finisher. I think this guy is also known as Lobo the Noob Slayer, and if so, he is a very good Mekboy player, and I think he pretty much just plays the Mekboy. Mekboy right now in cover, putting on a lot of pressure, teleports around, can tie things up, but really fights mostly in range. He's the only hero who can get setup weapons. And then finally, we've got Soul Drinkers. A pretty common player on casting channels, especially more so in 1v1 than in team games. And here he is playing as the Chaos Lord. The Chaos Lord is a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor. He has a combi bolter as well as a very big demon sword. His damage to start out isn't actually that good, but he's very tanky. He just puts on a lot of pressure and ties things up. Although, certainly, as you upgrade him, he can become very, very powerful and do a lot of damage. Now, Manisz and Rataxas I believe they're from Poland. They almost always team together, whether it is in a public game or in a tournament, and they are extremely good. Individually, they're very good, and as a team, they are extremely good. They play together, they play a lot of different heroes, and they really know the game. They really know how to work together as a team, so they're pretty amazing. Noob Finisher and Soul Drinkers, I don't know if they have quite the same synergy, although right now they are actually winning the game. They've got a triple cap. They've still got 500 VPs. Whereas Manisz and Rataxas have yet to get any VPs to tick down in their favor. Manisz also, man, I'm like switching back and forth on the way I'm saying his name. Manisz right now has triple Dire Avengers. He has not bothered to get the Dire Avenger aspect yet on any single one of them. He prioritized getting a Guardian Weapon team out, and he's also getting a Farseer upgrade. He's getting the Spirit Stones, which is a healing ability. Just heals units in an area of effect around the Farseer. That's a very interesting choice to just get as your first upgrade, and I feel like right at the moment he doesn't even really have units that synergize that well with it. I think it would be more useful just for using for the Farseer herself to make her more durable and make her last longer in engagements. So we should have a lot of generators going down from here. I actually don't really... He's prioritizing bashing the node, which I don't think is such a great choice, but he's actually... He wants to decap the node. Normally, I personally prioritize the generators because the generators give more power income and they're easier to destroy. Although, certainly destroying the node does open it up to being decapped. And now we've got another power bash, this one on Soul Drinker's side. He's got a double Chaos Space Marine build as well as a Noise Marine squad and a Chaos Lord with the Dark Halo. So he's really going to have a lot of capability to put on pressure. Although right now the positioning, I would say, if anything, slightly favors Rataxas. A lot of the things that got disrupted by the Warboss. The Warboss has both the Angry Bits and the Cyborg implants, so we saw him use both right there. He charged in, that disrupts, then he also used the Cyborg implants, that disrupts and stuns. Although now I think Rataxas is running a little bit out of steam, the Warboss is running out of health, and the Shooter Boys can't take on any one of these things by themselves. Meanwhile, we have a very, very close call from Manisz nearly losing one of his Dire Avengers. The other one also went down to 1 out of 5 models, so that's a lot to pay in reinforcement costs. 27 requisition per model. That's considering they are, as right now, with no... Given that 2 of the squads still do not have their aspect, these models are as weak as guardsmen. They only have 100 health per model. I think they are not even as weak as shooter boys, and the shooter boys are 27 requisition to reinforce as well, but they're slightly tougher at 125 health per model, or is it? No, 120.
The foe approaches our home.
So Manisz going for a no Howling Banshee play. So now some advantages of that, he's got a huge amount of range fire coming out. He's going to be able to kill a lot of Orc models very quickly, although the Orc models are going to be able to kill him very quickly as well. So he'll want to stay behind an energy shield. That can definitely work out pretty well for him. And I guess he also has a lot of power to bash generators. We might see a grenade go in to stop these Slugger boys. Actually, no grenade whatsoever. I think he was counting on being able to draw them back into the firing arc of the Shuriken Cannon. However, that looks like it's not going to work out so much, and he got very lucky there. He nearly lost a Dire Avenger and pretty much just saved it with the Spirit Stone's heal. As it is, it looks like it's still a very close call. So he definitely would have lost that Dire Avenger squad if he had not used that Spirit Stone's heal. Back over here, we've got a Painboy out for Rataxas, so that's nice because it gives him another single entity melee unit that doesn't bleed. And it heals, so it can help prevent bleed on other squads, although here he's actually using the heal on himself. Warboss going in for the decap, and the blue team is actually, they've pretty much evened out the... He's pretty much evened out the VPs. Soul Drinkers is claiming they have the tech lead. This is, yeah, that's pretty much true. They're both going to be, the red team both going to be starting tier 2. They have the advantage, and I think that has a lot to do with the pressure that Soul Drinkers has put on. I think he's really made it a priority to bash power. And look at that. The Slugger Boys were going to go in for melee against the Noise Marines, or even against something else. Even if they had gotten into melee with the Noise Marines and the Chaos Space Marines, that wouldn't have been good for them. Just the combination of the Noise Marines and the Chaos Space Marines there actually could have overpowered the Slugger Boys, even without the support of a dedicated melee unit. Given how weak Slugger Boys are, and given how tough Chaos Space Marines are, as well as how decent they are in melee. Anyway, this should still be a winning engagement for Soul Drinkers. I think the Chaos Space Marine squad retreated prematurely. I think he should have just like turned to engage, because I feel like the range composition from Soul Drinkers should mostly beat the range composition from Rataxas. Rataxas now does have a Ludo out on the field. Double Sluggers are actually putting on a lot of pressure, and so Manisz decided, he basically just decided not to go for Howling Banshee play, and it's not unheard of. It is still somewhat surprising just because of how good Howling Banshees are and how many squads you can wipe with that, and definitely with the range spam play, which is definitely a viable option, and it's something people do, and it's very good in its own way. You don't quite have the retreat killing potential that you would have with Howling Banshees. I mean, you do of course have the potential grenade spikes, but that's still just not quite as reliable or as effective as Howling Banshees or just any kind of dedicated melee unit. Slugger Boys right here, I feel like in a lot of trouble. I don't know where the Painboy is. If the Painboy was there to heal these Slugger Boys, that might be okay, but it looks like he can't even get in range to do a heal because he's getting disrupted by that Noise Marine. That Noise Marine, that particular cacophony actually turned out to be really, really good, because I think it disrupted both the Painboy and the Sluggers on both sides, so I don't even know how intentional that was, but it just ended up working out very, very well. Chaos Space Marines need to be very careful, trying to just run out of there, but they lose a model getting knocked over by special attacks from the Painboy. The Painboy does do power melee damage, and he does have damage over time on that, whatever, like, infected Choppa he has. We've even got a backcapping Chaos Lord. Chaos Lord running around, he's got the Dark Halo. Now, Soul Drinkers, it was interesting, but Soul Drinkers was the one who said that they have a tech lead and that they should use it well. I'm a little concerned that he hasn't really used it well. He hasn't built anything. He hasn't gotten anything in Tier 2. In fact, I think he has literally got nothing in Tier 2. Yeah, he doesn't have anything. He didn't get anything from Tier 2. My guess is he's saving up for a Dreadnought, and I'm right. But, I mean, considering he knew that they got to Tier 2 earlier, saving up for a Dreadnought means he ends up having to wait a really, really long time before he actually gets anything out of Tier 2. So he might have actually done better if he had gotten some marks on his Chaos Space Marines, gotten Let the Galaxy Burn on his Chaos Lord, or an upgraded weapon on his Chaos Lord, or even a cheaper squad like Bloodletters, if he'd gone for a Blood Crusher instead of a Dreadnought, or what else? Yeah, those are pretty much the options that he had that might have had more impact than waiting for a Dreadnought, because they had a tech lead, but they really didn't do much that much with it. And I was watching Soul Drinkers at that point. I don't know if Noob Finisher or Lobo has done much with it either. He does seem to be, again, mostly have a lot of Tier 1 things. The main exception is this Warboss, which, sure, it is a fantastic purchase, but getting a vehicle like a Death Dread may have been a better choice, although maybe I shouldn't say that. I could be totally wrong about that, since we have a Falcon that could probably kite a Death Dread and would actually just win outright against a War Truck. And there is a Guardian weapon team there, which could upgrade very cheaply to a Bright Lance. Meanwhile, we do have a Falcon of all things, and it's a bit of an unusual choice. I feel like I don't see Falcons that much. And there are a few reasons for that. The Wraith Lord is not that much more expensive than the Falcon. It's easier to use and arguably straight up better, since you can with a Bright Lance Wraith Lord you can get pretty reliable AV capabilities out of that. Additionally, one of the main advantages of transports is that you can reinforce out on the field, but Eldar is a race that typically does not want to reinforce out on the field. They really just want to not lose models. Anyway, Beamy Luda from Rataxas taking some high damage shots against this Chaos Dreadnought. Chaos Dreadnought now in a lot of trouble, and I think it would be the Chaos Lord should prioritize going for those Ludas so that he can tie them up. This is still a bad situation. Something goes down there. That was the Pain Boy went down, but unfortunately we have some Use Your Choppers on the Slugger Boys, and they just might finish off this Dreadnought. They do just have a lot of DPS. The Knob has power melee, and we've got Use Your Choppers increasing the damage, and that actually finishes off the Dreadnought quite amazingly. This is really bad news for the Guardian Weapon Team. That Guardian Weapon Team is done. Just didn't really retreat soon enough. Now about that Falcon, in some ways it is the best transport, and there are just some things about it that makes it better than other transports. In some ways, I'm not saying that it's outright the best transport, but it certainly has some very interesting properties. First of all, it's the only transport, well, at least prior to the Rhino being introduced, it was the only transport with AV capabilities. It does do some AV damage, so in a transport-on-transport battle, like if both players just blindly get transports, the Falcon can threaten the other transports, while the other transports by themselves cannot, although the other transports can certainly put an AV unit like a missile tack or, I guess, stormtroopers maybe inside. Anyway, Warlock goes down. And back over here, we've still got that Falcon doing a lot. He's keeping the Dire Avengers inside, and I mean, I'd say he's probably keeping the Dire Avengers inside to keep them safe and only pulling them out when they are safe. And then otherwise, like in this situation, he's not, well, actually does take out the Dire Avengers, but he can keep the Dire Avengers inside, and that protects them because they won't take any damage from the Shooter Boys, although 3 Dire Avengers coming out to kill 1 Shooter Boy squad, they definitely have the advantage, as well as having the support fire from the Falcon. The Falcon, unlike other transports, it does not actually need the units to be inside to use its full range of guns. So you get that AV weapon as well as the other things out of it, even just when it has nothing in it. Now in Tier 3, the Falcon can also get an energy shield, which makes it quite a bit more durable, and does help the Falcon to scale a bit better than the other transports. So we're seeing some pretty good Falcon play here, and it's pretty good, and especially It's especially interesting considering Falcon play is pretty rare. And Event Generator's mashed very, very quickly, just taking damage from everything. However, we do have a Noise Marine with a Blastmaster set up, and yeah, it looks like at this point that Manisz is just gonna have to back up. We've got a War Truck out on the field, and the Sluggers actually get out to overwhelm the Farseer. Farseer just retreats, and right now the Falcon, it doesn't do a whole lot of AEV damage, but it does do some. And he actually takes out the Dire Avengers. Unfortunately, 3 Dire Avenger models die from that one shot from the Weird Boy. I think he wanted to take out the Dire Avengers, though, to overwhelm the Weird Boy with a high amount of range fire so that he could threaten to wipe the Weird Boy, but the Weird Boy ended up coming out on the better end of that engagement. So it's now a lead for Manisz and Rataxas, despite the early VP lead that Lobo and Soul Drinkers had. They had something like a definitely at least over a 100-point VP lead when they still had 500 VPs. Alright, Warboss right here has upgraded to the Power Claw. I have seen that. That's generally the best upgrade for him. It's the most versatile, does more damage than the Bang Bang Hammer, and it increases his melee damage, unlike the custom shooter. Alright, so we've actually got a 1-to-1 cap game, and both teams are kind of staring each other down by the middle VP, trying to poke at each other by moving in with their high damage ranged units, and then backing off when they start getting shot by the other team's high damage ranged units. Heretics, meanwhile, are actually just bashing over here, and I guess right now the Heretics are not completely important for engagements. Looks like the War Truck went down. I totally missed that, unfortunately, but we do have a Wraith Guard in a bit of trouble as well, and to be honest, so is that Falcon. Grenade goes in, knocks over some Slugger Boys, but not a single model dies, and for the most part it looks just like Manisz getting pushed back so much. Look at these Slugger Boys just running in. They finally get suppressed and finally have to run out of there. Meanwhile, Soul Drinkers, he's got double Chaos Space Marines. They do not have any mark upgrade, however they do have Eternal War, and they both have an Aspiring Champion. Some Stick Bombs go in, though. Gonna knock over a bunch of stuff. Stick Bombs, I feel like, can be so powerful. Especially good for punishing opponents who do not micro or do not micro well enough. Although I feel like it's still good, period. And I also feel like Stick Bombs can put on so much pressure. I don't know exactly what the cooldown is, but whenever Stick Bombs are around, it does feel like they're always throwing stuff. Here we go, though, with some Bloodlust out of Soul Drinkers. That being said, I'm not entirely sure why he's using that. He is not really in the greatest position to use that. It's usually best used with melee, with high damage melee units, and for the most part, he didn't do a whole lot with that global. He's shooting a bit with Chaos Space Marines, which are not terribly powerful as a ranged unit at the moment. They're okay, and I mean definitely better than in their vanilla form, but not that great. Wraith Guard taking shots and manages to actually did not kill any of those Chaos Space Marine models. A little lucky there. And this Falcon is still alive and kicking, still doing well. Suddenly the Weird Boy might be in a bit of trouble, but here comes the Chaos Lord. But as soon as the Chaos Lord gets in, the Dire Avengers just go right back into that Falcon, and the Chaos Lord is doing some very minor damage to the Falcon, but for the most part he's not going to be able to take on a Falcon by himself. The Falcon now being threatened though because it's being chased by both Sluggas and the Chaos Lord. And I believe it also took a Beamy Luda shot. Or it took a... no, it actually took Tank Buster shots. And we've got Lobo being very brazen, but Manisz has also been using the infiltration on his webway gate to kind of save himself in situations. Alright, VP lead still for the blue team, 215 to 145. And Orc's about to overwhelm these Bloodlayers, and fortunately I think Soul Drinkers just kind of forgot about them. Loses 2 models, does lose 1 more. And we have a Havoc of all things. I wonder what that Havoc is going to do. It's going to switch to the autocannon.
Our forces shall have tools for the task. Under fire from orcs.
go forth newly girded. Ready.
And the Falcon says it's newly girded, whatever that means. That's like an SET word. But those Eldar are pretty smart. But what it really means is he's got the energy shield. So the energy shield, it according to the tooltip, it decreases the Falcon's speed, but also gives it an energy shield that it can use to absorb damage. I think it's a 5-to-1 energy ratio. And if that's true, it effectively doubles the Falcon's hit points. Here is that autocannon opening fire, and it's an interesting choice, although maybe Soul Drinker's deciding just not to go to tier 3, and he can put out an autocannon, and that gives him some pretty nice long-range firepower in a pretty cheap package. So red team has the double cap again, so they're getting the VPs to go back in their favor. 172 to 145. While we're looking at all that stuff, let's look at the levels. We've got a level 5 Farseer, level 3 MEK, level 5 Chaos Lord, and a level 3 Warboss. The MEK right here upgraded with a custom force field, beamy def gun, as well as the electric armor.
It is a fusillade.
One of the things that's nice about this Falcon energy shield is that it doesn't need to repair to get back the damage from the energy shield. It just needs to turn the energy shield off, and then it will start regenerating. So this also makes the Falcon, well, this might sound ridiculous. It also makes the Falcon a little bit more independent because it doesn't rely. It's not going to rely as much on the Dire Avengers for repairs. Though that is a rather odd property to have for a transport, which is mostly by its nature kind of very dependent on the transports, or on the units that go inside it, or at the very least it has the capacity to put things inside of it, so I don't know why it would necessarily need to be independent. Soul Drinker's back here destroying even more generators, and the power farm down here has apparently been completely destroyed. Rataxas getting hit by the Blastmaster Noise Marine. That Blastmaster Noise Marine was doing pretty well, and it just retreated out of there for some reason. I don't know if it was fearing a singularity, but otherwise it seemed pretty unnecessary. Alright, Farseer's going for the cap. So that should be the 1-to-1 at... Is it going to be 1-to-1 with exactly even VPs? No, 144 to 145. Look at this pressure. That is probably going to be it for the Wraith Guard, and it is. It also sounds like the Farseer is upgrading to have the Armor of the Assyrian. That grants the Time Field ability. You know, I'd say that's one of her best abilities. It's very, very powerful and very annoying to deal with. Wow, D-Cannon goes down for Manisz, getting flanked by all of these melee units, double upgraded sluggers as well as bloodletters, and here is that time field. And none of these units inside there can actually use any attacks. They move very slowly, and they're really just going to be at the mercy of these Havocs. Now, Soul Drinkers realize he's getting flanked, however, actually manages to dodge the stick bombs entirely. Back here, Manisz still rolling around with that Falcon, doing pretty well with it, but at the same time also getting backed off. I think this might be a good time to take out the Dire Avengers, force off the Weird Boy, as well as throw a grenade on top of this Havoc, or even just range it down. A grenade would have been nice, because I think a grenade could have resulted in a potential wipe. As it is, this Havoc is probably not going to get wiped. And now we've got a lot of AV from Noob Finisher. He's got his Mekboy with the Beamy Luda, as well as some Tank Busters. Tank Busters getting shot apart, though. Lose 2 out of their models, now only have 2 of 4. Alright, Shooter Boy scared off the point by that Falcon. They can't fight a Falcon. And I wonder, did Noob Finisher ever have double Shooter Boys, or has he always just had the double Slugger Boys? I think he's always had the double Slugger Boys, considering their levels. There is an over dare, but I don't know how well that's going to work out. They're, especially now that the Falcon has an energy shield, they're mostly just going to bleed the Falcon while not standing a realistic shot to actually take it out. Maybe if he had knobs to do that, which he... Well, no, wait, that's the wrong player. This is Rataxas. Rataxas has knobs. Noob Finisher doesn't. Both Noob Finisher and Soul Drinkers only starting Tier 3 just now. Although Noob Finisher also floating quite a bit of resources. Chaos Lord right here is going to pick up the Mekboy, get a Mech alive, and also give himself a level... now a level 6 Chaos Lord. Meanwhile, we've got the Mech teleporting around with the custom force field as well as the Beamy Def Gun. When he does that, when he uses the custom force field, he actually cannot be knocked down, which means he cannot be tied up by regular melee units unless they are either a vehicle or something that cannot be knocked down, like a Hive Tyrant or Terminators. Now, interestingly, we've got some Sluggers attacking in melee. They do have Burnas, so I wonder if the Burnas would be faster, although I don't know. The Burna upgrade, in a way, seems a little redundant to me on Slugger Boys. They're gonna bash generators pretty well, even just in with melee damage, although they probably still do it slightly faster with the Burnas. So the only other thing that the Burnas really have is that they're gonna give you anti-garrison, while just Sluggers without the Burnas actually would get countered by garrisons. Seems like a curious unit to have your anti-garrison on, though. But we've got some Seer Council out for Manisz. Seer Council are very powerful infantry, elite melee infantry. They're kind of a lot like Banshees. They do have quite a bit more health, however, and they do more damage. Here is a rock, so Energy Shield needs to be activated on that Fire Prism, and that rocks actually ends up achieving pretty much nothing aside from just getting the Falcon to move. Because that Falcon, all the Dire Avengers got into the Falcon right away. He did not bleed anything. He did not bleed any models from the Dire Avengers. Did not take out the Falcon either, because the Falcon with the Energy Shield was actually just able to tank some of the damage from the rocks and just drive out of there, so it was not exactly a great rocks. Looted Tank now out for... who is this? This is a Noob Finisher. And just one shot from that Looted Tank. And the Looted Tank, I believe the DPS figure on the Looted Tank's cannon is not as high as that on, like, the Predator autocannon, but I think it does more damage per hit. It seems to. But, of course, if it is doing more damage per hit with lower DPS, that does mean that it's firing a lot slower. Like, a lot slower. But another shot from that cannon goes in. And we already have this Looted Tank also with Reinforced Plating to give it an extra 200 health. Oh, model's dying from those stick bombs. Just one, so model dying. And Bloodletters, yeah, Bloodletters I feel might be getting in a little over their heads, considering they're Shooter Boys that can turn around, start focusing down the Bloodletters. Meanwhile, this Falcon, if anything, is now in a bit of trouble. Where is that Mekboy? Mekboy is back in base, so he was not there to offer his anti-vehicle damage. But the combination right now of the Farseer and the Seer Council is pretty intimidating. I wonder if that's what part of the reason Manisz got the Spirit Stones all along, to help him synergize with the Seer Council, since the Seer Council are quite a bit tougher than Banshees. They have 500 health per model. That's actually a decent amount, and they do more damage. So if you're healing them, they're going to be pretty intense. Although right there, that was unfortunately not really wise. They got disrupted. They lost a lot of health. And the Seer Council actually go down. Unbelievable. I did not see that coming. Anyway, VP is now pretty significantly in favor of Manisz and Rataxas, 123 to 18. The red team now running out of time in VPs. Soul Drinkers is using the Bloodlust Global, but it's not actually working out that well for him with Chaos Space Marines against Knobs. And Knobs still winning that quite handily. That's going to work out better if you really have more of a full-on melee-oriented build. Heretics, Khorne Chaos Space Marines, as well as Bloodletters, and then that's the perfect time to use it. Anyway, 1-to-1 cap, except for the fact that now it's a 2-to-1 cap. The Farseer, Manisz's Farseer getting a cap on the middle VP, but now it's a 1-to-1 again with, I think this is Lobo decapping the blue team's natural, but how long can they hold that against a Guardian Weapon team as well as, well, mainly just the Guardian Weapon team since the decam is facing somewhere else entirely. Bloodletters get taken out, just kind of wandering right into some Slugger Boys. I don't know what was happening there. Soldiers may have just lost track of them. And we've got a time field with an Eldritch Storm, forcing off all those orcs, and there's no way they're going to be able to get back out of there to reclaim those points. That's got to be a GG. Even snares his own Falcon. But this level 4 Falcon has been pretty amazing. This is quite possibly the best Falcon play I've ever seen.
Engines ready. Where are we needed?
Level 4, and it's got, I mean, it's actually got something like 1,300 to 1,400 hit points between the energy shield and all of its levels. But, quite a game. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.